Now I am. That was crazy. I freaked out for a second, like, oh man, infiltrated.
There's something. It might do that again after 40 minutes. Okay, because it's somewhere it's saying something about upgrading to a different level or something like that. I have to look more into that. I'm not really into the Zoom. This is really my first time ever really using Zoom. But Lance had a question.
Okay, well, here's my first question. Because I wanted to know, based on everything that we've covered so far, okay, I want to bring in the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act that we talked about on the last Zoom chat.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Okay, yes. Because what my thinking is, like I said, based on what we've gone over so far, let's say if anybody were to create their own private entity, be it a trust or whatever it is, this is making me wonder.
Foreign Status Trust.
I'm sorry, say it again.
A Foreign Status Trust. Oh, I was just thinking because means that it's situated somewhere other than the United States, okay? And it's a foreign, meaning that it's private. Foreign status, it's in a different lord, and it's a trust. Okay, but what were you going to say?
Well, it's making me wonder about titles. Should we be calling ourselves, let's say if we're acting on behalf of that private entity, could we call ourselves an ambassador as opposed to saying, let's say, a trustee if it's a trust, or a partner if it's a partnership, etc.?
Okay, make note what they have jurisdiction over. Is there what the courts they have jurisdiction over? Ambassadors, public ministers, and consuls.
Okay.
These are representatives. They're representatives. They represent the people's interest. How would I say? I was having a conversation with my brother about this, and how he's saying in some states they say that the only way that a corporation could be represented is if the corporation is represented by an attorney. But in this particular situation, what they're talking about is dealing with ambassadors, public ministers, other public ministers and consuls. And take into consideration, you as a human being, you could sit in a capacity of an organization as the ambassador for that organization. But in this situation, we're not sitting in the capacity of an ambassador, public minister, or consul, because what we're identifying or we're becoming, we are in fact the human beings in which they represent us. Does that make sense?
Okay, it's making more sense.
Am I Tommy Crawford? I'm not Tommy Crawford. I'm a human being who's represented by a corporation which subsequently is a part of a state who represents me, yet it represents my it represents my ambassador as well, which is also a citizen in the state of Minnesota. And it's also identified in the United States as well. Or if I go to Washington, or if I go to Wisconsin and they want my identification, they're going to incorporate my person, Tommy Parrish Crawford. They're going to incorporate him on their paperwork if I get a citation. So therefore, he's representing my interests in a foreign state or in a foreign country. He's representing my interests.
Okay.
Do you see how that worked?
Okay.
He's my counsel.
Okay, that brings me to another question then. Okay. Because this is making me wonder about the distinction that many people make in this, let's say, this kind of study where they talk about the de facto versus the de jure. It sounds like in this context, all of these titles that we're discussing, they exist in the de facto. Am I correct?
Yes. De facto is not bad. Sometimes we get this we get this notion about de facto not having the authority to be, because it's not real, right? It's not the real, it's not the authentic, right? But taking into consideration the de facto posing to be a certain way. For an example, like Lance, here you want to engage in having the good life, yet everyone owes you. Everyone owes you, Lance, right? But guess what you do? You say, well, Tommy, you're a bigger guy, and guess what? You have the ability to persuade people to pay. So what happens is you hire me. And you go hire me, and in fact, I might owe you as well. But what you do is you hire me to go collect the money that's owed to you. And what I do is, as I'm going to collect from everybody, I'm like, hey, I need that Lance money. I'm collecting taxes for everybody. In your stead, I'm acting as a de facto power, which I'm exercising your power. It's not necessarily my power, but I'm having a de facto power based upon you appointing me in this position. And who is everybody afraid of? They don't even know you. They don't know you in this situation because you're enjoying life. But the real issue is they're paying me because of your right to payment, and you authorize me to collect for you. Let's look at it.
Okay, and after you go through this explanation, I got actually just a third question for you too.
Okay. Actual, existing in fact, having the effect, though not formally or legally recognized. Like, for an example, the United States, they in fact, they collect taxes, but they legally don't have authority to do so. It says the United States shall, or what does it say? United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. So what the United States, they have a duty to guarantee for the states a Republican form of government. And the state in and of itself have a duty to the people. So, and it says right here, it says illegitimate, but in effect. So if the United States is taxing, but here you come in as one of the people, you know good and damn well who they're collecting taxes for. So now all of a sudden their de facto authority will not stand against you and your de jure. Just a second. How do you spell de jure?
I think it's DE space JURE.
You said JURE. That's correct. Existing by right or accordance to law. And this is some basic stuff. Because here, I understand that when people start understanding that, hey, this de facto government, people put their hands on their hip and talk about this de facto government, which is true. But when we start looking at the bylaws of how this de facto government comes into play, and we're basically saying the government knows this is de facto, but since we look at it from we're sitting up here saying, oh, this de facto government, how negative it is for this de facto government. But when we realize who the de jure government is, or who has the de jure power, the right of the people, then when the de jure comes in here, guess what we do? We go check our de facto government simply by applying our exemption, so everything works out. Does that make sense?
It does.
So you know, because they love you guys that go against the system. When you go against the system, I can't believe that they're really doing this. No, you're in denial. Obviously, you're not understanding who the de jure is and how the de jure functions. If you understand that we the people put these guys in place to do this, yes, they're the de facto government, but we're the ones who actually have the control. So what we have to do is understand the exact game on how they're playing. If you understand the game on how they're playing, then it makes perfect sense. Did you have another question?
Yeah, the last one, I believe it's in the Declaration of Independence where it mentions General Assembly.
Right. We'll go to the Declaration of Independence. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America and General Congress assembled. Congress is the lawmaking authority. You know, Congress is the lawmaking authority. Appeal to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intent. Do in the name, because guess what they're going to do? They're going to use your names, our names, and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these United Colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. What they're telling you, they're putting it in here. They're going to say, we're going to use these names. We're going to use these names, and we're going to get our authority from who? The good people of these colonies. They're not even hiding this stuff. So now what we fail to do as the good people, we fail to realize where they get their authority from. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Going back to, so wait, I want to get back to this council real fast just for a little bit, because I'm not going to get in this whole detail about this council. But when we start realizing that, hey, the council has purpose, but he doesn't have the privileges and immunities unless there's a treaty that's granted to him. I spelled it wrong, so that's why it's not popping up. Now we're talking. Now we're in this concept of political science, the science of here. We're playing. Do you guys play chess? Anybody play chess?
I've played it. I don't play it often though.
Okay, Jeff, have you?
Play chess?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, take this as a game of chess. When we talk about the government, we're playing chess, and most people play chess without actually understanding the rules. There was one point in time when I was playing chess with someone, and I was in a desperate situation because they were about to, I only had my king left, and I kept on maneuvering it around. And they, for some reason, they couldn't lock my king in. And what happened is, based upon the actual rules of chess, after 50 moves of them in their inability to capture my king, now we could call it a draw. A draw is not necessarily a stalemate, but it's a draw. Stalemates are draws, but in this particular situation, it's a draw because it was like they couldn't capture me. So legally, based upon the rules of chess, engagement in chess, they did not win. They felt offended that they didn't win because it looked like they had a chance, but they just simply couldn't do it. But guess what I used? I used the rules that govern how the game was played. Now, technically, we're using pieces in the game, but who actually feel or the use of pieces? The pieces don't feel in this game in chess, but the human beings that actually use these pieces actually feel the effect of winning and losing in that game. Does that make sense? So now,
Yes, it does.
so now in this situation, we're playing the game called the government. And we have pieces in this game that represent our interests. We have consuls, they're like pawns. We have public ministers, like the state. Then we have ambassadors, like our person on our private side. If we create an artificial person or a foreign trust that we create that doesn't get its existence from the government, and therefore those are powerful pieces that could be used to represent our best interests, that could actually win the game. But what we fail to understand is we fail to understand the rules of the game. And what the Constitution clearly states is that there's counsel, they're commercial agents, they're not diplomatic agents. So now when we start realizing what it says they reside abroad for the purpose of protecting the individual interests of the traders, travelers, mariners belonging to the state. When you do business, you use your consul as a trader. It's a traveler. If you travel from state to state, they say, let me see your driver's license or your ID, then your person or your consul is going to be on there. Look what they say. And the states employ them so that the state could identify the particular human being who's being addressed or accounts, which is recognized in that state. They exercise jurisdiction over their countrymen. And their, what does it say? Their persons are inviolable. Their residence may be used as asylums in the case of war and tumult. And the fact that they possess more than the ordinary diplomatic immunity. Consuls are not diplomatic agents. They perform various services for the state and its subject in another state, without, however, representing the former in the fullest sense. Now, I want a person didn't pay no attention to that if they didn't. It says, however, representing the former in the full sense. In this particular situation, it says, services for the state and the subjects of the state, without, however, representing the former in the fullest sense. So now in two situations, it represents the states and the subject of that state, meaning the state of Minnesota and Crawford Tommy Parrish, which is a subject, he's a citizen or a subject of the state. But it says, without, however, representing the former, which subsequently in this situation is the state in the full sense, because he actually represents my private entity directly, which forms a trust for my benefit. And I'll get off into that. They may be nationals of either state, and generally they are made subject to the authority of the diplomatic representative of the state for which they act. And I want you to understand how this works. It says, and generally they are made subject to the authority of the diplomatic representative of the state for which they act. So now what happens is the state of Minnesota, the state of Minnesota is a public minister. It's a public minister which represents the people as a whole. And it has, since it's a public minister, it has diplomatic status, or it has diplomatic authority as a public minister. But however, Crawford Tommy, which is also a diplomatic representative, and it's an ambassador of the highest rank, which sets above the state of Minnesota. So now, is the state of Minnesota a diplomatic representative? Yes, it's a public minister. Is Crawford Tommy a diplomatic representative? Yes, it's an ambassador. The ambassador has more power than the other public ministers. If in the event that Crawford Tommy, as a diplomatic representative, having diplomatic authority, if he fails to exercise his diplomatic authority and grant the exemption or the privilege or immunity, the diplomatic immunity to that consul, Tommy Crawford, the state of Minnesota had my consul will be subject to the authority of the diplomatic representative subsequently in the state of Minnesota, like by the police department. The police department on that particular document, like a complaint it shows the state, it shows the diplomatic authority, meaning the plaintiff. Whoever the plaintiff is sits in the diplomatic capacity. And this, whoever the plaintiff is sits in the diplomatic capacity, and it exercises sovereign authority over the defendant, who the defendant is being taxed. He's being taxed by the diplomatic authority. The commercial agent is being taxed by the diplomatic agent. Unless another diplomatic authority, such as your private side, exempts the liability, agreed by treaty and exempts and authorizes the exemption, which creates a diplomatic immunity. Does somebody have a question about that? And just for the record, this is where the courts put the liens on. You remember when dealing with affecting ambassadors? Affecting ambassador means putting a mortgage on or pawning ambassadors, public ministers, and consuls. So on paper, what the court does is when a diplomatic agent, such as an ambassador or public minister, respectively, more so the public minister, he makes a charge against the consul, and which creates a mortgage or lien, and the collateral for that consul is recognized in the court. And this is why they point this out. So just a second. Go here to this is why right here it says affecting, pawning, mortgaging, or putting liens on ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls. So now, if you guys to read that thing where I'm talking about the rules for the government, and this is where it's played at. When on that charging instrument, understanding in that contract, there's always an ambassador. There's always a public minister who's sitting in the diplomatic capacity, and he's making a charge against the consul. So if your person in that contract, because an indictment or a charging instrument is in fact, it's actually a contract that's being made, and that person is being taxed. So, and as long as that tax is not exempted, if there's no exemption there, that person will have that lien. That person will have that lien or that mortgage on that person by the concept of infection in that particular case. Does that make sense? So then what they're going to do is they're going to use the citizens. These citizens could sit in the capacity of an ambassador, minister, and consul. So I want you guys to get that, because I wasn't meaning to go so far into dealing with how this works just yet, because now I can show you how this stuff actually plays out, and I'll show you how this plays out in statutory law, and talking about the foreign, how it actually works in foreign affairs. But right now here, this is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, because all throughout the Constitution, they're talking about representatives and the capacity in which representatives represent the interests of human beings, but they're not in fact talking about human beings in the Constitution at all. They're talking about different organizations that's used to do this. We'll look at the preamble of the Constitution, but more so, we want to get off into, but actually, I want to bypass, for the sake of time, I want to bypass the preamble of the Constitution. But when you guys have time, or if you, when you get this video, you want to stall this or, pause it and actually read the declaration. But understand what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is. This is actually international law. Okay. And I want to show you a couple points in here so that I could bring out some points in statutory law which identify this. Okay, Article 1, it says, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and shall act towards one another in the spirit of brotherhood. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedom set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under other limitations of sovereignty. And I want you guys to note here, no matter where you live, whether your government is owned by another government or your state is owned by another state, these political or contracts have no effect on the human being. And it doesn't matter what color one is or ethnicity or anything of the like. This is why when I talk and when I put on a document, I'm a fully constitutionally empowered human being, because human beings have human rights that go way above and beyond any rights that could be established by any other rule or law. And it's identified and it's international law. And then it says 3 here. Everyone has a right to life, liberty, and security of person. And I'm pointing these out so that because I'm going to show you some statutory law talking about this stuff. And it says, everyone has a right to life, liberty, and security of person. Life, liberty, and security of person. When they talk about person, they're talking about person. Your Lance, you have a person named Lance. I have a person named Tommy. Jeff, you have a person named Jeff. Life, liberty, and the security of person. You have the ability to exempt your person. You have the ability to protect your right to protect your life, liberty, and your person. Now here's a catch. I mean, it's not a catch, but understand what they're saying here. No one shall be held in, what is this? This is Article 4. It says no one should be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. You guys read that? It says no one should be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. Now, one might ask the question, well, this whole time, that's what I've been talking about. I've been talking about them I've been talking about the states in the United States engaging in slavery. And so slavery and the slave trade should be prohibited in all their forms. So in this particular section, there's some catches and some clauses. And also, I'll show you how they get around it. The word shall means may. Then it says shall be held. The word held. A person can be a slave, but they don't have to be held into slavery. No one may be held in slavery or servitude. It comes up with the appearance that it's saying no one, they can't have slavery or the servitude, but you have key words like shall and may. If they clearly said that slavery is outlawed, forbidden, there's no slavery, that's one thing. But they put this catch in here. It says shall be held, right? Slavery and the slave trade shall be held shall may be prohibited in all their forms. So under the appearance that one argues, wait, slavery can't exist. It can't exist. And so it gives it the presumption that slavery is completely illegal. But when they put those catches and clauses of this word shall, which opens a door, which makes it arguable. So this is how they get down by using your person. They use that as a tool because under the presumption, hey, we did not charge Lance, the human being. What do we charge? We charge the corporation. And then Lance willingly sat in the capacity of a surety for this artificial person. He sat in the capacity by will because we can't technically legally justify slavery, especially when all they have to do is use an Egyptian to offset the liability on the account. So I want you to understand a couple of things here. They talk about they have the freedom and dignity and rights. They have the security and life, liberty, and security of person, and no one should be held. No one should be held in slavery. Dang, let's see. I'm trying to figure out. Somebody might have. Okay, that's not dealing with this. Okay. Do you guys have any questions about this so far?
None so far. This is good.
Okay, now watch it. Now we'll go into some law here. Now this stuff is kind of funny how they word this, but when you get it and how they do it, once you start being in denying how they're working, it makes it very hard to understand how to win. But we're not going to deny anything because is slavery good? Agreed. Slavery is good as long as you know how to be a slave owner. Slave owners win. They control everything. Now, you see here, we're section 11. Somebody feel like reading section 11?
All right, I'm unmuted. The term foreign government as used in this title, except in sections 112, 878, 970, 1116, and 1201 includes includes any government, faction, or body of insurgents within a country with which the United States is at peace, irrespective of recognition by the United States.
Okay. I'm going to read it. Now, you said it, now I'm going to read it. The term foreign government as used in this title, and this title is Crimes and Criminal Procedures. Okay, just for the record, this is Title 18. The term foreign government as used in this title, except in sections 112, 878, 970, 1116, and 1201, includes any government, fraction, or body of insurgents within a country with which the United States is at peace, irrespective of recognition by the United States. So in this particular situation, do we see that? Do you guys see that catch or that clause? What's the first catch or clause? What's the catch or clause there? Anybody remember? Say that again.
Exceptions there.
I couldn't hear you.
The exceptions there.
The exception. So now, if you were to cut out that clause there, it says the term foreign government includes any government, fraction, or body of insurgents within a country with which the United States is at peace, irrespective of recognition by the United States. So are they talking about Canada? Yes. Are they talking about Mexico? Yes. Are they talking about all the other countries that the United States is at peace with? Yes. Those are foreign governments. China has a foreign government. Russia has a foreign government because they're not at war with them. So those are foreign governments, right? To the United States, right? So So we're able to actually understand what a foreign government is because it says that there. But now here's the catch. You remember what a comma is. When using a comma, you have to take into consideration, well, the term foreign government, here's the catch, except in this title, as used in this title, except in these sections, because in these sections, they're going to talk about another foreign government from that of the United States in those particular sections. Because once we realize that the United States operates out of DC, United States operates out of DC. So that's that jurisdiction. And now the United States, it doesn't have jurisdiction in Minnesota. It doesn't have jurisdiction in Washington. It doesn't have jurisdiction in California. So now these are all foreign jurisdictions. They're all foreign jurisdictions with foreign governments. So let's look at these sections right here. We'll go to this section one. We'll go to this first section here. Hold on a second. We'll go to that 112 because it mentioned 112, right? And there's one section that's just kind of like really profound. Now, could one of you guys tell me what state you're in? Either one.
What?
I'm in
Say
Ohio.
that again. Okay, that's where I was born, right? Now, do you think there's official documentation indicating that you were there?
Yes.
So technically, if there's documentation indicating that you're there, you technically are a foreign official. Because these laws that they're implementing right here are the laws of the United States. And the United States operates out of DC. So the laws of the United States operate out of DC. They don't have effect in that foreign jurisdiction, and you're identified as a foreign official. Well, look what they say in this first section here. Whoever assaults, strikes, wounds, imprisons, or offer violence to a foreign official